Good morning and welcome to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM, the sound of Lagos. Yes, it's time for us to look through the papers and look at the major trending stories on the front pages. We have The Guardian, The Punch, Vanguard, and New Telegraph papers in no particular order, and I will be giving analysis to the major trending stories. And then we'll do this up until 8:30, and then by 8:40 we move on to Mainland Focus, where we pick two or more major trending stories and then open up the phone line for you to join in on the conversation. My name is Mobola Sandra, and I'll be having Fuhad Saheed joining in via the phone line to give analysis to the stories that we're going to be looking through this morning. But in the meantime, today is Friday, the 11th of August, 2023. I don't know if people are still excited about Friday because I don't know if people still go out to, flex and all of that. I don't really know, but I just know that at least people who have to, squat somewhere in order to reduce their transport fares, they get time to spend with their family. They get to go home and relax and rest and stretch, however it is that you want to. There are the good sides to it. I'm very certain of that. Okay, so let's just stay positive. Let's keep the faith alive, and let's hope that as dark as it may be right now, that it's darkest before dawn, and we hope that we're edging closer to dawn. We'll just have that, let's hold on to that positivity. All right, but good morning, Fuhad. How are you doing, and are you excited about Friday?
Good morning, Sandra. Yes, why not? At least, a day of the week where, you are already looking at, a restful weekend, at least one day off. It's always a day to feel excited about the weekend, take some time off from work to unwind and, get back to work again.
That's
So
right.
I'm excited. It's always good to see Friday, come.
May not be the same way we used to unwind before, but at least you just unwind. You can unwind in your house with beans and gari and you know just relax. That's just the most important thing.
Shower, unwind, anyhow,
Just anyhow you want
just
to unwind,
unwind.
just unwind. Unwind anyhow you want to do it. All right, let's look through the major trending stories. I'll start with the Guardian newspaper and the major headline: Who blinks first? Niger forms new government as ECOWAS standby force ready for deployment. So, yesterday, the ECOWAS had a meeting. Oh, yes, there was a meeting of ECOWAS yesterday, and at the end of it all, apparently the use of force is not off the table. So, what we have here is defiant Niger forms new government as ECOWAS standby force ready for deployment, and there are riders to that. ECOWAS seeks United Nations and others' support to restore constitutional order in Niger. Tinubu: if we don't do it, no one else will do it for us. Junta threatens to kill Bazoum in event of military invasion. Keeping Bazoum hostage is a terrorist act, says Ivory Coast president. Nigeria under Tinubu now, comedy of errors, says Afenifere. Khan rejects military intervention in Niger. So, Fuad, this is 4 days
Anyways,
after the... Okay, I'm with you.
the the resolution of the ECOWAS meeting yesterday was very clear, and as expected, the use of military force, military intervention is not off the table. I've always said it that when diplomatic options have been explored, you also have situations where you keep military options on the sidelines. You don't take it off the table. For people who understand how these things work, international diplomacy requires that you bring everything to the table. And here we are talking about an illegitimate government, a military coup, ousting a democratically elected president. So as it is, one would understand where the ECOWAS is coming from. I think a lot of people have narrowed it down to a Nigerian thing. No, this is an ECOWAS treaty, it's an ECOWAS resolution. It's just that the chairman of ECOWAS at this time is the president of the country. But the reality is that, look, if we are not careful, the way it is all going, we may have an ECOWAS, dominated by military government, which is an aberration, which is not something that we should continue to encourage. I've seen people talk about the fact that, look, these military governments are taking over because of bad governance, because democracies have failed in their countries and all of that. But I say that, look, in reality is that military men are not trained to rule. They are not trained to govern. You know, we have the experience. We saw what happened in the past with military government. How they, you know, looted the treasury, the impunity that comes with military government, the lawlessness that comes with any form of military government. Yes, democracy is challenging. It's evolved. The democratic experience of the United States of America, that is going to be the largest and the most successful democracy in the world. It's over 2 centuries. The democratic experiment. Challenges too. They had their own troubles too. You know, they kept amending their constitution, their democracy kept evolving. Just imagine that while America's democracy was evolving, they were having military interruptions. What would have happened? You know, we have democracy in Africa has a lot of issues. There's the issue of bad governance. Our politicians have not been able to deliver the dividends of democracy. But you know, you don't encourage something completely negative because you have a problem. So again, one will hope, because again, ECOWAS has said that, look, a military option is the last resort, the last option. It's not like the first thing to consider. But they're not going to take it off the table. I understand where that is coming from. And for people who also say, what's the business of Nigeria? I think I did that yesterday to explain clearly that, look, if there's a civil unrest, if there's a serious problem in Niger as we speak, because of the borders that we share with them, and the fact that southern Niger has about 70% of their population, if there's a crisis in Niger, Nigeria does not pay attention to it, we are going to have serious refugee crisis. Already Nigerians are in Nigeria doing no manner of jobs and all of that. So this is the time to pay attention to what is happening in Niger Republic because of our closeness to them. So again, ECOWAS has spoken. We'll wait to see how they are going to act all of this out. They've told their military chiefs, you know, to get the regional force activated and ready for any possible military intervention. But like I said, they said that that was not going to be the first option. They still continue with their dialogue, diplomatic options to see a release first and restatement of President Mohamed Bazoum. There are questions as to his whereabouts as we speak, his health. There are questions also about his health. Is he detained? Nobody knows his whereabouts as we speak.
And his family.
And his families too, you know. So, and you know the funny thing is that when you listen to these khaki boys, I prefer to call them khaki boys. You know, they're already talking like revolutionaries. Oh, they're talking like the Thomas Sankaras of this world.
They formed a new
but
government.
The reality is that, look,
they formed a new government. There's an interim prime minister already.
You know, even before people to govern the 8 provinces in Niger. So the guy is already settling in as a president. Although he's been told that, look, you are not going to be recognized. You are an illegitimate government. Nobody recognizes you. After today, the president of Niger has recognized internationally, apart from the other countries that are governed by military government, is President Mohamed Bazoum, who was elected just 2 years ago. I have listened to the military guys in Niger. They have not said clearly that they ousted Bazoum because of bad governance.
All right.
This was a guy that spent very 32 years. You know, so a lot that still has to come on this particular issue. Again, for people who continue to try to justify military takeover, they have to have a routine. It has not worked for any other country in the world. Military takeover, no.
All right. Well, speaking of the reason for their decision, that's the president of Ivory Coast, Alassane Ouattara, told journalists that the leaders were left with no option and the decision was not just about Nigeria's interests. He said, and I'm quoting, "This is not a decision of Nigeria against Niger. We have tried dialogue, sent a delegation of high personalities. The military government is keeping President Bazoum hostage. I personally consider keeping President Bazoum hostage as a terrorist act, and we cannot let this continue. We have to act." That is from the president of Ivory Coast. Now, as regards the position of Côte d'Ivoire, which has been endorsed by all heads of state, is that we have been able to tell these people that their place is in the barracks. They should go and fight terrorists and not try to kidnap a democratically elected president. So he said, and I quote, "We believe in this for the credibility of ECOWAS. All of us are concerned and involved in this decision." So I'd like to thank the former president of ECOWAS, President Tom Barlow. He himself is a former general, democratically elected, now to serve and he insists that we want democracy in our sub-region. It's a long read, but then as it is now, ECOWAS, as part of their decisions, the ECOWAS leaders directed the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. They also ordered the deployment of the ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order in Niger. And nine of the 11 heads of state were in attendance, which includes the presidents of Senegal, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Togo, Benin, Guinea-Bissau, and Sierra Leone. Liberia and the Gambia were represented by their foreign ministers. Non-ECOWAS leaders that were there, Mauritania and Burundi, also participated, but in a closed-door meeting. Also in attendance was Africa Union, United Nations, delegations from there, and all of that. So, I mean, it's something that, you know, it's of utmost importance. Yes, each country may have its own issues, but I think, just as Fuhad has said, it's of utmost importance because whether we like it or not, there's going to be spillover, whatever is going to be happening, in Niger across the ECOWAS states. All right. Well, more details on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian. No, apologies. Page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Now, let's keep moving. Still on the front page of the Guardian. Youth Party false claim of 1 trillion naira saved in post-subsidy era. All right. Is it that they don't think we have saved up to that, or we have saved more than that? Let's see what the story said. Youth Party yesterday. What's Youth Party? You say a party. Okay. Youth Party yesterday described as audio savings the federal government's claim of having an accrual of 1 trillion naira following the removal of subsidy in the past 2 months. And the National Publicity Secretary of this youth party, Ayodele Adio, stated this. He said it was irresponsible of the government not to have prosecuted those who it claimed stole from Nigerians through the subsidy scheme, even as he lamented that it is the people who always bear the burden of mismanagement of the country's resources. Now, Fuad, do you think the savings of 1 trillion is well, I don't even know the word to use. I don't want to use audio savings.
It's audio.
It's not possible.
It's false.
Is it too tall?
No, I don't think so.
Big for us to have saved in the past 2 months? Is it too much?
No. You know, when monies like this are declared, it was clear the government said they had about 1.9 trillion to share, which are coming from tax collections, every revenue that accrued to the government over 2 months. And so basically what we did was, instead of sharing the whole thing amongst the 3 tiers of government, let's share over 900 billion and then say the 1 trillion naira. If you look at that report very well, the so-called youth party, they are putting too many things together. It's not really clear what they are trying to do. If the government said it has saved over 1 trillion, so be it. I'm sure they are not the Auditor General or the Accountant General of the Federation who have been able to do that. And I'm sure no government would just want to put that figures out there. To what intent? What are they going to trying to achieve? That kind of information if it's false. And then the part that subsidies the fraudsters should be prosecuted. That's another thing entirely. Understand what I'm saying? That's why I say they are lumping too many things together. These are going to be talking about the government prosecuting subsidy fraudsters. Okay, that makes a lot of sense if that's what they are trying to say. That okay, they are going to be encouraging the government to prosecute.
Okay. I'm with you.
So if that's what they are saying, fine. But to dispute the fact that the government has saved about 1 trillion naira, for me, I don't know why they decided to go into all of that. The reality is that if the government said it has saved 1 trillion, fine. And I think the records are there. These are things that you can't really manipulate, really. And I think the government was able to explain how they were able to achieve at that figure, arrive at that figure. So,
all right.
I don't think we have to waste too much. But I agree that we can prosecute subsidy fraud, that people who have stolen our money through subsidy payment.
All right.
The government should go after them. I agree with that completely.
Okay, but what do you also agree with what he said? He said that if indeed they have saved 1 trillion naira, then how come it is just 50 billion that is being set aside for small businesses between now and 2024? Remember, the last presidential broadcast that the president said, 50 billion was going to be set aside for small businesses with 1 billion each and all of that. So he's saying that if truly we saved 1 trillion naira, so that 50 billion from 1 trillion is too small, for supporting small businesses.
Well, again, we can decide to deploy 1 trillion to support small businesses. I agree. In fact, the state of our economy requires that we need to rescue a lot of businesses, what you can call interventions. And if you are questioning the fact that 50 billion is too small, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But again, if you save money, it doesn't mean because you have saved money, you have to spend everything. I'm not trying to defend the government's actions. I'm just trying to say that they have to be clear on what they are saying. You cannot question what has been said. You can question, they should go after subsidy for stars. 50 billion is too small. They should deploy more money, as intervention for small businesses. All of that makes a lot of sense. If you understand what I'm saying. I agree that 50 billion may not go too far. We said it now. When you say 75 billion, you give 1 billion to 75 businesses. What would that stop? If you understand what I'm saying. But beyond putting monies and intervening for businesses to try, it also has to be about the business climate, the business environment. The government doing the right things in terms of power, infrastructure, security, and for businesses to try. Concentrate on that.
Thank you very much, Fuhad. Well, let's move on now. Still on the front page of The Guardian. More details of that on page 7. We also have the big story here, which is on pages 4 and 5, where we have Sins of Forgotten Past. Nigerians opt for cinemas ahead of aging museums. And it says here that Nigerians are ditching aging museums for cinemas and recreation centers. So museums and cultural interpretation centers are important tourism and social powerhouses globally. And although the pandemic temporarily grounded, some people, but then what conspicuously lagging in the boom of the soft economy are museums and tourist attraction centers in Nigeria. And what they're trying to bring out is museums all over the world collect, preserve, display objects of artistic, cultural, historical, or scientific importance, and the fact that many Nigerians aren't paying enough attention to our museums enough attention. Yes, most people would rather go to the cinemas or to the beach, for recreational activities. What would you say, Fuhad? And is it? Should we? I want to ask a question. Is it the people's thing? Is it something that we should say? You guys should come to the museum, or we should say, the government should make the museums more, should preserve these museums more, so that people will be interested in going there. What would you say?
Sandra, it's about you pay attention to what you're exposed to. If you understand what I'm saying, and that's why some of us are advocating the fact that the Ministry of Culture and Tourism should be removed from Ministry of Information. I think the tourism guys have said enough about the fact that that's one part of our national life that has been completely abandoned. Not lagging, nothing is happening. Some of these museums are supposed to be the job of the Ministry of Tourism and Commissioners for Tourism in different states of the country. People are supposed to really harness the opportunities. A lot of our young people don't even know anything of museum exists in their neighborhood or in their area. My one or two recent visits to Badagry, the State Relics Museum in Badagry is deserted. Nobody goes there. Nobody even bothers to visit the place to learn history or talk about anything that concerns our culture and heritage. So it's about having people in the tourism business, take charge of tourism in Nigeria, give it the needed publicity. If you take it to schools, for example, let our kids be interested in these things. I understand why the cinema thriving. It's purely in the hands of the private sector, and they are running it the way business should run. The publicity is high. They are taking advantage of social media. I think a film came out yesterday or so, and everybody is talking about it. You understand? Because the private sector knows how to drive these things. But the tourism sector is largely in the hands of the government, and they are really not doing anything about it. In the last 8 years, for example, what did Mr. Lai Mohammed, as Minister of Information and Tourism, what did he do about tourism? Probably he was not even interested.
Well, Nigeria
So
currently.
those museums will come back to life. Those museums will come back to life if we have experts in our tourism sector managing them, giving them the needed publicity and exposure for people to get interested in them again.
Well, it's the fact that there are countries all over the world that are making billions annually from tourism. I mean, the Forbidden City in China is one that I particularly I'm looking forward to going to view. All right, and then you have the
because
Louvre.
you're exposed to, you keep reading about it, right?
Okay,
you keep seeing documentaries about it.
Yes.
You keep reading about it. There are films about it. There's a place in I think Kwara State.
Okay.
That is of what I call a mega tourism point. It's called the I think
cultural value.
Here, where you have so many statues. They are just there, and there's a lot of mystery and story behind it. But nobody's putting it out there for anybody to come and see.
Oh. Is it the city where all of them turn to stone? This village?
Turn to stone. Whether it is, yes, the story is there. It's called the CS2 and Kwara State. Wouldn't you want to see that instead of the Forbidden City in China? Which one would you want to see?
I mean, it's close by here.
Wait, now between that one and the Forbidden City, which one would you want to see?
I want to see both.
No, but put it on the scale of what? Put it on the scale of priority. Now, which one would you want to see first?
Okay, because I want to be patriotic. I want to see the first one first. All right, but I think I see where you're going with that. No, but also I think I totally understand where you're going with that because according to this report now, Nigeria currently has about 52 museums, 65 monuments and sites, but largely in sorry states. This number and its ugly sins have not translated into an increase in visitors' database. The fact is that I think, just as you've mentioned, that more needs to be done as regards our cultural heritage, historical artifacts, and all of that. I mean, in Benin alone, I mean, there's also what we can.
Of artifacts,
yes, there's also what we can take advantage of. The Osun Osogbo Festival. It used to be, a tourism, attraction. I don't know if they still have that. So I mean, the Osun Grove as well.
Go there, but
yes,
not coming to that dimension that you expect. From this thing, the Arugungu Festival. I think there's story in Ajibola that they said the tomb of the Queen of Sheba, for example.
Yes.
A lot of young people don't even know anything like that exists.
Yes,
the Queen of Sheba. Her tomb is somewhere in Ajibola there or in Jebu area. I don't know which part now. So the point of no return in Badagry. A lot that we can talk about when it comes to tourism in Nigeria. Look at the Mambila Plateau in Taraba State, for example, the Obodo Plateau Ranch. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot that we can put out there. The Forbidden City, I'm sure, is not as attractive as some of these monument sites and tourist points in Nigeria. But nobody talks about them. Nobody even brings them to life. That's the issue. Because we don't understand the business of tourism.
Well, thank you very much, Fuhad. Thank you so much. More details of that is the big story on pages 4 and 5 of The Guardian. The fact that Nigerians are opting for cinemas and other recreation centers as against aging museums. I remember when we went to the National Museum here in Lagos and we saw the Murtala Mohammed car. It was so fascinating. But then, I don't even know if schools still do excursions to all of these places. I think that's another thing that we should also ask.
They go to the beach or go to the mall.
They go to the mall now. I don't know why are we doing excursion at the mall, but that's another conversation entirely. Let's move on now to the Punch newspaper. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Mainland. This is Trends in the Papers. We're looking through major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. Now, on the front page of the Punch, the major headline there: Niger crisis. ECOWAS troops on standby. Junta threatens to kill Bazoum. Rider said Tinubu says ECOWAS open to dialogue. United Nations, United States worry over Bazoum in junta's captivity. Concerns rise over looming humanitarian crisis and the burden on Nigeria's finances and military. Just very quickly, when we're having that conversation as regards how this ties in. Considering the current lean public revenue of the country, 100% debt service to revenue ratio and counting indebtedness and all of that, CPPE balked at the country's ability to absorb the cost and called for a deeper introspection. This is because Nigeria, which has shouldered the cost of ECOMOG, that's Economic Community of West African States Monitoring Group, at the peak of the Liberian War, reportedly lost $8 billion to the crisis and lost hundreds of soldiers. Also, in its big brother role, the country lost an estimated $4 billion in Syria alone during their 5-year civil war. So, should the country concede to a military campaign in the crisis in Niger, the loss would be much higher considering the inflationary trend at the moment now. And that's coming from CPPE. Fuhad, what would you say?
Yeah, I agree. The era of ECOMOG, when we had the intervention and peacekeeping operations in Liberia, our military was not this overstretched. Our economy was not this challenged. And so it was easy for us to bear the burden, the cost of deploying military and all of that, if you understand what I'm saying. But now our military is overstretched. We are spending so much, to secure our territories from bandits, terrorists, Boko Haram and all of that. So it's going to be a big burden to bear at this time, especially with the state of the economy and the state of the nation. But there's also a problem, Sandra. If we say we are not bothered, it's not our business, and we allow the J to, to disintegrate, to get to a point where there's a civil unrest and we have a serious refugee crisis, Nigeria would also have to pay for it. Because, look, I can tell you that if there's a major crisis in Niger, 80% of the migrants will come to Nigeria. Nigeria will be the first option for them.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that would also be a big burden to us too, because we'd have to now have refugee camps, IDP camps. We're going to have to be dealing with some manner of crime.
Yeah.
And so because I can tell you there's a problem in Nigeria, most of these people will first come to Nigeria. Are they going to go to Mali? What's in Mali for them to go and take? Maybe the other options would be to go to Algeria and the rest, but most likely a lot of them will take advantage of our porous borders with Nigeria to come here, and that will also be a big burden. And that's why the northern states are already saying we have to be very careful with the Niger situation. If there's a major crisis there, it's going to cause a lot of problems for them in the north, and it's also going to affect the south too.
All right. Well, more details on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Let's keep moving now. We also have here on the front page of the Punch, flood hits Edo, Adamawa, Ekiti, and 17 others. Anytime, we have all of this kind of stories, I don't know what exactly we're supposed to make of it, but then it is in the papers because I know that there have been warnings, and alerts have been given out as regards the rainy season. But then the federal government has said the 2023 flood situation across the country is worsening as 20 states and 46 local government areas have been hit by different degrees of flooding. And they said this has resulted in the demise of about 5 people. And this was disclosed at the National Emergency Coordination Forum organized by National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. Okay, so providing an update on the flooding situation in the country with respect to the projections. So far, not less than 20 states and the FCT have experienced 1 degree of flooding or the other. And the states affected are Anambra, Adamawa, Abia, Akwa Ibom, Edo, Benue, Borno, Delta, Ekiti, Imo, Kwara. Others are Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Niger, Taraba, Rivers, and the FCT. Well, I don't know, Fuad, is there something you'd like to say? Because, what efforts are being made? That's for my own concern. I'm with you. Hello? Oh, no. I think we have lost a good connection there. Hello? Okay, we'll try to reconnect with Fuhad later on. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on mainland 98.3 FM. We're looking at this report here that says flood hits Edo, Adamawa, Ekiti, and 17 others. The story is on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here bus crashes into Lagos shops, kills mother and daughter. Very unfortunate. And that story is on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. Very quickly here, a yet-to-be-identified woman was crushed to death alongside her 2-year-old daughter in the Ikotun area of Lagos, and reports that another trader was also injured as there was a bus that rammed into some shops along the roadside opposite Toluwalashe Hall, Governor's Road, Ikotun. Said the bus driver fled when he was almost lynched by passengers who gathered at the scene of the incident. It is a Hammer bus. It's probably lost its brake. There's no investigation still ongoing. But the story is on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. All right. Oh, Fuhad.
You know what, Sandra? Something like that just happened. I think on my way now.
Oh, my goodness.
Just like the road safety, Jodu Berger now.
Oh.
I think that's even, but again, I don't think any life was lost. A truck carrying cows just rammed to, close to the fence of the road safety office there in Jodu Berger. The truck is being pulled out, but it's a very big one, very heavy one. Cows there, I think 1 or 2 cows died in that one. So again about the roadworthiness of our vehicles, apart from the mental stability of the drivers too, mental checks for some of these drivers. I think a lot of our trucks, buses, we need to also call on the road safety officials. A lot of questions about their roadworthiness.
Yeah.
And this one happened close to the road safety officer. A truck carrying cows now just rammed close to their fence.
No, there's no casualties.
No. At least at the point of getting there were no casualties. But I think 1 or 2 cows were killed in that accident. But the truck was completely damaged, heavily damaged, and the fence very close to the road safety office there in Ujuju Berger. And I just brought that out to say that look, these things happen. And then for people who own shops too close to the road,
yes,
one would think that they are on the roadside too. The danger of that too is what we need to highlight. They are supposed to be setbacks, right? Between the shop and the road. To in case anything like that happens, you are safe from a vehicle that loses its brake or something. Culverts and things that should protect shops. But now you have situations where you go to some neighborhood, the shop is directly on the road, very close to the road. I think these are things that the town planning authorities need to also look into. Accidents can always happen. Then if there's that distance between the road and the shop, and there are some things to stop, vehicles from eating directly at the shop, it could save lives. This is unfortunate and avoidable too.
All right, thank you very much. For more details of that on page 4, we also have here elevator crash, more dust after Lagos female doctor's tragic death. Apparently, it's the big story here on page 3. There's still details coming in, or where there's still different stories. There's still a lot of things that are being uncovered after all of this story. After that very, very unfortunate incident that happened on August 1, as it is now, since then, several accounts of the accident have surfaced, with the official story stating she died in the elevator after the crash. However, multiple eyewitness accounts and family members have picked holes in the story. There's a story of she was, brought out. There was no blood. There was this. She was brought out alive, but then there was no blood to quickly, do some emergency response. So many stories. Well, that's the update as regards that. That's on page 3. Yes, I'm with you.
Sandra.
Yes.
Whether she died in the elevator or she died after being rescued from the elevator, the fact is that this was an avoidable death, and that Dr. Viaso died as a result of the negligence of people that refused to do their job.
Okay.
That's the fact. Every other thing does not matter again. Whether there was blood or there was no blood or anything, there was no oxygen. The reality is that she died as a result of the negligence and the ineptitude of our public officials who should be manning that facility and doing the right thing. It's not about how she died. The reality is that she died, as a result of the failure of the system. The system failed her. That's the fact there that we should acknowledge and learn from and ensure it never repeats itself. So that's the way, whether there was blood or look, are we trying to hide behind our fingers? I use the public hospitals. We know what goes on there. When it comes to issue of blood, oxygen, the Lagos Island maternity where pregnant women use, mothers use, the lift there is always faulty.
All right.
Anybody can go there now, whether the lift in Island maternity is working perfectly. And that's supposed to be a facility for pregnant women, heavily pregnant women. And you see them using the staircase We know these things. Go to the Lagos Island General Hospital. Go and see their toilet. The environment in itself. What are we saying here?
Mm.
And I think people should be punished until we see people punished for negligence and failure to do their job. Nothing will change in this country. So what's the excuse about? The system failed that young doctor, unfortunately.
Well, more details on page 3 of the Punch newspaper. Above the masthead of the Punch, we have here, Kalu lobbies Ganduje for more Southeast ministerial slots. That is still a conversation that is up, and stories on page 11. So, Deputy
We saw the pictures yesterday.
Deputy Speaker,
I think you should go and lobby the president, though, not Ganduje.
is the party chairman.
Which one would the party chairman do?
Oh.
Is he the one that's appointing minister? He himself struggled to make himself minister before he was given the option of party chairman. He should just go straight to meet the president and tender, and maybe the chief of staff that we have been told is now in charge of the presidency. You understand what I'm saying? Lobby past lobby when it comes to policy.
Well, he's calling on the president and the leadership of the APC to consider increasing the ministerial slots for Southeast for the sake of equity and federal character. And he made the appeal when he paid a visit to the national chairman of the APC, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, at the party's secretariat. Let's not forget that the president currently has 48 ministerial nominees. The Northwest got 10 slots, the Northeast got 8, North Central 8, the Southwest got 9, the South got 9, but the Southeast got a mega 5, and that is where this conversation is coming from. Just for equity, for the purpose of equity, and let's just
political equity, not equity in terms of governance. Don't mix things up here. Just for political equity, so that every politician out there is well satisfied.
Yeah.
Because again, even if the Southeast get 20 ministers, it may still not change their lives there in the Southeast. So for political equity among politicians, that's what we are saying now. Not because governance is going to come to the Southeast if they get more ministers. Real governance, it will bring it.
It's okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
It's all right. Thank you. Fuhad, we stated last week. On Wednesday when we were having this conversation as regards the fact that the fact that the Southeast has just 5 states is already an issue. I think is already a disadvantage for that region. I think that should also be looked into. Don't you think?
It to be looked into, but it's a very, very
long and tedious
to handle.
Okay, all right.
Because again, it will require some constitutional amendments and all of that. And what would happen is that, look, you bring that to the table, that the Southeast should get one more state to balance things out. Other geopolitical zones too will say, look, there are states that have been, demanded for. For example, in Ogun State, they are called to have Ijebu State. I'm sure you know.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are other states there too that people are advocating for in other parts of the country. Even in Lagos, there are people who are saying we should have Atlantic State. So we divide Lagos into 2, mainland and island. Why not? We have the population, don't we?
We have the landmass.
You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so it's about landmass.
I'm asking.
Okay, I hear you. Okay, wait now.
I'm with you.
If you give people coming, yes, now we don't have the landmass, but we have the population. Okay. But if you create states on landmass without people, empty land, you are creating states on empty land. We should also create states on empty water now that don't have people. Okay. If that is the case.
All right.
You don't understand what I'm saying?
Look at
you. Kano also 40. Jigawa, look, from the old Kano, you created about 2 other states.
And it's still
what are we talking about here? So,
and it is still a large state. All right, I see where you're going. Thank you very much for that. Well, more details of that on page 11 of the Punch newspaper. Let's move on now. We also
Where's
have
the population. You see that we should not debate that issue.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that.
Started now.
Fuhad, you want to come from island states? I see where you're going with that. It's fine.
Atlantic.
You
can call it Atlantic state.
On the water.
That's the island. Yeah. Why not? And then this other one becomes Lagos State. Lagos State, Atlantic State. From Lagos, we can have it. We have the population. Forget the landmass. And we have the economy too.
On the Atlantic.
What are you telling me?
I
It's
said,
the biggest economy. Lagos.
okay,
Take Lagos out of Nigeria. What do you have?
35 more states
Doing what?
and the FCT.
Okay, I hear you.
Let's move on now. Naira slump. Fuel price may go up, say marketers. And that's on page 20. So as we are still grappling
You
with
see?
the realities of the Naira dollar situation, the reality is the fact that, it's definitely going to translate into our oil
The cost of
importation.
PMS. Yeah.
Yes, as regards the cost of PMS. So the fall of the Naira against the US dollar, coupled with the recent rise in global crude oil prices, is making Nigerians apprehensive of a possible hike in the pump price of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol. Although the NMPCL and other oil marketers have not announced any increase in petrol price, they confirmed that the scarcity of foreign exchange and crude oil price were the key factors. They always say market forces, Fuhad.
We didn't vote for market forces, Sandra. And I will tell them anytime, I didn't vote for market forces.
Right.
The market forces explanation is just to discuss. We voted for people to make our lives better, not to make it hard and tedious. And it's just a fact. We keep saying it. If we don't fix our refineries and we keep importing, the prices will continue to go up. Immediately, the dollar begins to misbehave against the naira. And I think crude oil price is now at about $85 per barrel. It's going to about $90 per barrel. So if you put all of realities that look, before you know it now, the prices of PMS will go up again and we'll be told that it is market forces. We didn't vote for market forces. Like one of our callers will say, what we have is lack of capacity, failure, misgovernance, corruption. If you put all of that together, that is the market forces they are telling us. And we didn't vote for that.
More details on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. This is still trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. And we're moving on now to Vanguard newspaper very quickly. The major headline there says Niger, ECOWAS orders deployment or standby force. That is on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. We also have here defection. APC NWC to welcome Edo Deputy Governor next week. But the writer said it's not true. I'll sink and swim with Obaseki, says Tribe. Well, no, is it? The writer said it's not true. It's not true.
There's no smoke without fire.
APC's.
So why did he run to court to stop his impeachment? Tribe.
But I want to read this writer for what?
Okay, please go on.
APC is not a rehabilitation center for distressed politicians. And that's coming from Adams Oshom. Yes, I find that's very laughable.
He talks a lot, and his colleagues in the Senate recently cautioned him when he said in the Ninth Assembly as senators who looted, facilities of the assembly and all. And the senators had to call him out and said he had to apologize to them for what he said. And then because again, I think in politics, what you have is a situation where there are no permanent enemies. What you have is permanent interest. So when you now make statements like the APC is not a rehabilitation center, what they are trying to do is to shut people out. And I think in politics, there are politicians that will say, that's not the way it's played. I think they should learn from the Grandmaster of Lagos State here, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is always happy to welcome people to his fold, even if there are sworn enemies in the past. Then you come to him and he just bring you into the fold. We remember Musi Obani Corona and a host of others who there are no issues. But Edo State is going to be interesting. We need to see what will come out of all of these tribal or
exactly, especially as Edo State goes to the polls in November. So this is something that a lot of people are paying attention to.
They are not part of the November election.
Edo?
They are not part of the November election. We have Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo for November.
Oh, Imo.
I think the election is for
Imo. It's Imo.
But it's going to be interesting because the reality is that Shuaibu wants to become governor. He thinks he has paid his dues. As a deputy governor, you are just one step from becoming governor, Abi. And so the next thing for him is I don't think the governor actually wants him to succeed in. There are also questions about the senatorial zones arrangement in Edo State there. But whatever that is, politicians will always try their luck. So, but we'll wait to see. It's a developing story. We just have to wait to see the end of all of this.
Well, Shoaibu has distanced himself from moving to APC. He described as a lie from the pit of hell, insisting that he will sink and swim with Obaseki. Well, time will tell. We'll leave that at that. But then there's a court meanwhile plot to impeach him from office as deputy governor. Well, we'll see how things will pan out. But more details of that on page 7 of Vanguard newspaper. Let's keep moving now. We have here, Danfo drivers are not complying with transport fare cut, says Lagos State government. And that is on page 10 of Vanguard newspaper. The Lagos State Ministry of Transportation went round. They're going round parks and garages trying to find out if the yellow buses are complying with the fare cuts that the governor announced. So that's where this is coming from. We also have here, tribunal sacks Kano NNPP rep member over certificate forgery. Oh, yeah. The story is on page 12.
This thing keeps repeating itself, Sandra. I don't know why. A simple thing as the requirement to go for public office in Nigeria.
Have your papers in order. It's just
no, Sandra. What I'm even saying is that it's so easy. The requirement is just have a school start. You can have S9 parallel, Sandra. The requirement is say you must pass or you must have credit. You just have this. They show that you went to secondary school and you wrote the school start exam. It's as simple as that. And then you still keep having some of these people forging certificates. And then for the Edo election, this next year, 2024, is one of the off-cycle elections. It's very close to. That's why you see all of these political cancrum. If you want me to borrow the words of the Edo politician.
Well, more details on page 12 of that. We also have, there's an update here as regards the job racketeering happening in the FCC, that's the Federal Character Commission. Reps panel orders arrest of ex-FCC staff. So apparently, Fuhad, the story we started on Wednesday where the man said he paid money and then, he has been receiving salaries. He didn't resume. He didn't resume. He didn't collect later. He has been receiving salaries. As regards that, the panel has ordered an arrest of the ex-FCC staff. But there's a lot that's going on, in federal. No, not
the
just
FCC should do its job. Simple as that. The police, FCC should just do their job. They have a case to handle here.
All right. Well, we also have here Southeast governors, reps, army move against insecurity. And that is on page 11 of Vanguard newspaper. Just very, very quickly, what we have here is the governors of the Southeast, the House of Representatives ad hoc committee, and security agencies, which includes the Chief of Army Staff, met at Enugu and Abuja over the biting insecurity in the Southeast. So as it is now, there's an agreement amongst all 5 governors in the Southeast as regards criminal elements that are linked to IPOB and ESN and that are threatening the existence of the Southeast region. So something is being done now collectively in the Southeast region. We have the governors have resolved to intensifying war against the prevailing insecurity, and all 5 governors were present there, and they said they'll fight insecurity collectively and also individually. We also have here arsonists continue in Imo as police move to arrest suspects. Also, will end kidnapping in Southeast region, says Army Chief. More details on page 11 of Vanguard.
A second, Sandra.
Yes.
While they are doing all of that, I think all of the governors too, political leaders, people of influence, associates of the president can also begin to push for a political solution to this Nnamdi Kanu issue. It's very important because it is in the mix in all of what they are doing. I think they should also push and see maybe they will be lucky with this president. They tried it with the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, but I think they can try and see whether they can get a political solution to getting Nnamdi Kanu released. That would also help.
Thank you. And that's a wrap for trends in the papers. We'll take a short break now. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, so you can join in on the conversation by then. But please stay tuned. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.